Emmerdale spoilers for next week reveal Bear has told the police what he did to Ray. But do they believe him? Elsewhere, Kane is losing it and pushing everyone away. Can Sarah get through to him? All this and more in next week's Emmerdale spoilers. Bear is questioned by DS Walsh, and he confesses he killed Ray and he acted alone. Bear gets more and more agitated, and a slip of the tongue leads Walsh to grow suspicious. She refuses to believe he moved Ray's body on his own. Can Bear prove himself? Mandy arrives home unexpectedly, and Paddy begins to fill her in. But then Dee Seachin arrives and asks Paddy and Dylan to come to the station. Paddy is a nervous wreck, sure they're going to prison for the rest of their lives. However, soon Bear is charged with manslaughter. The solicitor says they have a good chance of pleading self-defense. But Bear wants to do the honorable thing and plead guilty. Can Paddy change his mind? Kane is still keeping his diagnosis a secret from Moira, but she can tell something is wrong. He changes the subject to tell her about Bear's confession and how it could help her get free. But after Bear admits Kane pressured him, it looks like it's back to square one for Moira. As Kane grows more frustrated, Ruby is overwhelmed with guilt. She confesses she called the police and reported the bodies on Moira's land. Kane can't believe what he's hearing. He is furious and accuses them of stitching Moira up. He orders them to leave. Sarah begs Kane to stop pushing away everyone who is trying to help him. Will he listen? Relations between Arthur and Laurel are at rock bottom when she finds him with Ray's money. He says he's G0ing to Australia traveling with it, and threatens to tell people she hit him if she tries to stop him. Laurel takes the money off him and hides it. But when she overhears Marlon and Rona talking about their huge debt, she makes a decision over how to use the money. And Arthur's not going to like it. Dawn tells Joe she thinks she might be pregnant. How will he react? Commie and Ross can both see Lewis and Vinny like each other. They set about matchmaking the pair. But will it work? Commie and Vinny are very impressed when they spot the DeLorean outside the shop. But who takes it for a joyride? Emmerdale is heading into one of its most explosive and emotionally devastating weeks, yet as secrets unravel, confessions fall apart, and the pressure threatens to destroy families from the inside out. With Bear finally telling the police what he did to Ray, Kane spiraling as guilt and fear consume him, and Arthur making a shocking threat against his own mother, the village is on the brink of total collapse. As loyalties are tested and desperation drives dangerous decisions, one question hangs over everything. Will the truth be enough to save the innocent, or will it destroy them instead? Bear confesses, but DS Walsh isn't convinced. The week begins with Bear sitting opposite DS Walsh in a tense police interview room. His face is pale, his hands shaking, and his voice barely steady as he finally admits what everyone has been waiting to hear. Bear tells Walsh that he killed Ray. He insists it was an accident. He insists he was acting alone. And over again, he insists that no one else was involved. Walsh listens carefully, watching every flicker of emotion cross Bear's face. She can see he's confused, struggling to recall events clearly, and she gently guides him through what happened that night. But as Bear talks, cracks begin to appear. He grows increasingly agitated, his words tumbling over each other. Then comes the slip, a single phrase that immediately raises Walsh's suspicions. It's subtle, but it's enough. Walsh no longer believes Bear's story adds up. When Bear insists he moved Ray's body entirely on his own, Walsh pushes back hard. She refuses to believe it's possible, especially given Bear's condition at the time. No matter how much Bear protests, Walsh is no longer convinced he's telling the full truth. Can Bear prove he acted alone, or is someone else about to be dragged into the nightmare? Mandy returns, just as everything falls apart. Back in the village, chaos escalates when Mandy arrives home unexpectedly. Expecting a warm reunion, she instead finds tension, fear, and unanswered questions. Paddy begins to explain what's been happening, trying to reassure her while barely holding himself together. Before he can finish, the door opens, and Dee Seachin walks in. The atmosphere instantly turns ice cold. Dee Seachin informs Paddy and Dylan they need to come to the station for questioning. Paddy's world collapses. Convinced this is the beginning of the end, he spirals into panic, certain that he, Bear and Dylan are all going to prison for the rest of their lives. Mandy watches in horror as Paddy is taken away, realizing just how serious the situation has become. Bear is charged, but refuses to fight. As the investigation progresses, Bear is officially charged with manslaughter. His solicitor tries to reassure Paddy and the family, explaining that Bear has a strong chance of arguing self-defense. Ray was dangerous. Circumstances matter. There is hope. But Bear doesn't want hope. Racked with guilt and convinced it's his responsibility to take the blame, Bear announces he intends to plead guilty. Paddy is devastated. He begs Bear to reconsider, reminding him that pleading guilty could destroy everything, and still might not protect Moira. Bear won't budge. He's determined to do what he believes is the honourable thing, no matter the cost. Can Paddy change Bear's mind before it's too late? Kane's desperation grows as Moira's case unravels. Meanwhile, Kane is barely holding himself together. Still keeping his devastating diagnosis a secret, he lashes out at everyone around him, pushing away those who want to help. Moira can see something is deeply wrong. She presses Kane to open up, but he shuts her down, refusing to talk about what's really eating at him. Instead, Kane clings to Bear's confession as a lifeline. He tells Moira that Bear admitting to killing Ray could finally help clear her name and get her released. For a brief moment, hope flickers, but it doesn't last. When Bear admits to the police that Kane pressured him into saying Moira wasn't involved, everything unravels. Instead of helping Moira, Bear's statement makes things worse. The case against her strengthens. Moira is crushed. Kane's desperation has backfired, and now she's paying the price. Ruby confesses, and Kane explodes. As Kane's frustration boils over, Ruby reaches breaking point. Consumed by guilt, she finally confesses the truth. She was the one who called the police. She was the one who reported the bodies found on Moira's land. Kane is blindsided. His fury explodes as he accuses Ruby and Caleb of deliberately throwing Moira under the bus to save themselves. He feels betrayed, humiliated, and enraged. In a fit of rage, Kane orders them to leave. He wants nothing more to do with them. But Sarah steps in. Begging Kane to stop pushing everyone away, she tells him he's destroying himself, and the people who still care about him. For a moment, Kane wavers. Will Sarah finally get through to him? Or is Kane too far gone? Arthur and Laurel reach rock bottom. Elsewhere, relations between Arthur and Laurel are at an all-time low. Laurel is horrified when she finds Arthur with Ray's money. He tells her he plans to use it to travel to Australia and start a new life. When Laurel tries to stop him, Arthur turns vicious. He threatens to tell people she hit him if she interferes. Laurel is shattered. Determined to protect herself and others, she takes the money and hides it. But the damage between them is already done. Later, Laurel overhears Marlon and Rona discussing their huge debt and financial struggles. That's when she makes a decision. A decision about how to use the money. One that Arthur is absolutely not going to like. And when Arthur finds out, the fallout could be devastating. Dawn drops life-changing news on Joe. In a quieter, but no less emotional moment, Dawn sits Joe down and tells him she thinks she might be pregnant. Joe is stunned. Is this the start of a new chapter, or another complication neither of them is ready for? His reaction could change everything. Ross and Commie play matchmaker. Amid the darkness, Ross and Commie decide it's time to inject some romance into village life. Both can clearly see there's a spark between Lewis and Vinny, and they set about trying to push the pair together. But as Emmerdale residents know all too well, meddling rarely goes smoothly. Will their matchmaking efforts lead to love, or embarrassment? The DeLorean brings trouble. Finally, Commie and Vinny are thrilled when they spot the iconic DeLorean parked outside the shop. The excitement quickly turns to chaos when someone takes it for a joyride, proving once again that even light-hearted moments in Emmerdale can end in disaster.